Welcome to this edition of Fuel for Thought. I'm Mark Rechtin, Executive Editor of S&P Global Mobility. If you've been hearing the buzz about connected cars, autonomous vehicles, the human-machine interface, they are all of a piece, known as the software-defined vehicle. This is the next generation of automotive technology, and it certainly is a brave new world. Not only will this change how consumers experience an automobile, it also will represent a transformation of the traditional automaker-supplier value chain that we've known since Henry Ford, and more recently, the Toyota production system. So, what does it all mean? Joining us today to discuss the promise of the software-defined vehicle and its potential roadblocks are two subject matter experts from S&P Global Mobility, Phil Amsrud, Senior Principal Analyst for ADAS Technology, and Tawhid Khan, Research Director of Supply Chain Technology Innovation. Good day to you both.
Hello, Mark.
Hello, Mark.
Let's take care of some basics first, Tawhid. The average age of cars on the road is 12 plus years, so when a lot of consumers go into a dealership to buy a new vehicle, there's going to be a whole lot of technology that will be unfamiliar to them. So when we describe a software-defined vehicle, what are we talking about in today's fleet compared to where the connected car was, say, 10 years ago?
Thanks, Mark. Well, to start with, none of us in the future need to go to the dealer shop or when we're buying a vehicle or buying or upgrading a feature when the software-defined vehicle is up and running. Well, unless you fancy seeing a vehicle physically or fancy a stroll outside of your home to speak with a person in the dealer shop. And I can tell you, it's not me. I don't like to go to the dealership because I don't like the environment. So this is something OEMs are trying to do with SDV. Remove the old style vehicle sales experience where customers only choose a vehicle and its feature when they are buying for the first time along with the finance deal. And there's no chance to change their mind regarding new features or upgrading the features once the vehicle is out of the dealer outlet. Now, if you look at our shopping habits nowadays, we are so used to shopping online, especially with our mobile devices. Most of us never visit a dealer outlet when we choose or buy a mobile phone or a TV or a fish freezer or any electronic gadgets. So most of our are asking why a vehicle buying experience can't be like that. Why it's so different and monolithic. Well, in fairness, OEMs are realizing that customers habitual change and realizing that the customers are much more informed than before. They're asking similar user experience to their digital lifestyle. They also prefer a hassle-free buying experience and, more importantly, choice of new features after buying their vehicle, like they're used to do with their mobile phones or laptops. Now, all of these customer requirements are pushing the development growth for SDV. So to me, this would be the first gateway with SDV and an important benefit for customers. Therefore, if I have to summarize the key difference between today's me and Gen Z me in 2030, well, I can buy a vehicle of choice online in the comfort of my living room with a virtual dealer showroom experience. I can opt in or opt out of any features I like. And then, more importantly, I can connect my vehicle with all the digital instruments that I have. So these can be part of my integrated digital lifestyle. And then if I don't like a feature, I can just simply remove it from the vehicle by simply canceling my subscription. Or even better, if I want a new feature, I could simply go to the vehicle app store and add it without making a call or going to the dealer and listening to their finance blurb, much to my annoyance, or even worse, listening to why I can't have the feature because my vehicle is too old or don't have the right level of hardware. So the only choice I have is either change the vehicle or live without it. Another point to add here, there was a time, I would say, when the vehicle was an aspirational commodity in our life, especially for me. So as we progress, it is something we wanted to show as a status symbol. However, with younger generation buyers, especially Gen Z, are very tech savvy and they see the world very differently. They see the vehicle as part of a solution for their digital mobility and lifestyle. So, a vehicle without cloud connectivity, online maintenance, support system, frequent upgrade is unthinkable to them.
Quick follow-up, Tawhid. As automakers are already working on what will be coming in their next product cycles, what are some features we will be seeing in 2030 in software-defined vehicles that aren't in cars today?
The key difference between what we have in the vehicle today and the future is primarily software features and the deep connection between the vehicle and the cloud. I don't anticipate vehicles look and feel will be very different compared to today's vehicle. However, there may be some interior differences when fully functional autonomous vehicles, meaning level 5, is available on the road. So, with future software features, both drivers and passengers will have a very different driving and riding experience in the future. I define these experiences as more of psychological relationships between vehicles and users. For example, in today's scenario, if you look at the relationship between a driver and a vehicle, the driver instructs the vehicle to do something, and the vehicle, which is a sophisticated driving machine, just simply follows it. So, for example, you turn the steering wheel, the vehicle turn right or left. You turn indication, it's indicate right or left. You brake, and it stops, etc. However, going forward with so many intelligent features backed up with AI and machine learning, the vehicle will be a partner in your lifestyle. How? Well, the vehicle may read your calendar, sort out your journey plan before you even start the driving, may advise the best possible route, take a dictation, send that message to your office, resolve diagnostic issues automatically without you being involved in the conversation. This is what I refer to as companion car, which is more than just a machine for driving A to B. It's a solution for your mobility and contributor to your digital lifestyle. Now, to support these type of use cases and vision, automakers are trying to develop a homogeneous computing environment that will allow the vehicle to act as a node within a much larger computing infrastructure. This means clouds and the vehicle will coexist and development can be done synchronously between them. When this is in place, software can be designed and developed independently of relying on the underlying hardware. That means all the software and hardware functions and vehicle development can be developed independently. To achieve this goal, they are striving towards in-house software capability building, supply chain decentralization, and harmonized vehicle operating system across the vehicle platform. The main goal here is to achieve a seamless feature and the vehicle update and management of the software throughout the vehicle lifecycle without relying on the vehicle milestone process, meaning the software can be developed and rolled out during and after the vehicle launch. Now, with regards to the what kind of new technology we're going to see, what OEMs are mainly thinking about is making everything intelligent, whether it's cockpit domain system, whether it's HMI, autonomous system, obviously, intelligent powertrain and suspension system. So what we're going to see drive towards more software-driven functionality as opposed to embedded hardware type functionality inside the vehicle.
Let's move on to Phil. We touched on the issue that plagues software-defined vehicle technology and development: automotive lifecycle planning. A typical vehicle platform is meant to last 6 to 8 years to get the most out of its amortization, and sometimes double that if a skilled re-engineering is performed. And don't forget those 3 years of development before the car even hits the streets. Meanwhile, there's Moore's law that says computer chip processing power doubles every 2 years or so. And while over-the-air software updates are all the rage, there still is an issue as to the limitations of the hardware footprint that exists from the day the car launches until its last date of production, and for its life on the road after that. So Phil, how will automakers and suppliers rationalize this discrepancy and calculate the hardware footprint of future vehicles?
Well, it's certainly going to vary by situation. So if you're a premium OEM, you'll have a very different model for how you justify that versus if you're a more broad-based OEM. So, on the one hand, you can make the argument that in favor of the software-defined vehicle having a standard platform that you take across your entire fleet, because that allows you to do the hardware design once. You're not having to do it for different price points at the hardware level. You may factor software into that, but essentially what you're trying to do is say, as software becomes more and more important, the OEMs are trying to do things to spread the software investment out over a longer period of time and over a larger number of platforms. So that all sounds well and good on the one hand, and if every car that you're selling is expensive enough to where the hardware costs associated with implementation is below the threshold of pain for your consumers, you can do that. That's not the case if you're a broad-based OEM, where you're trying to sell entry-level vehicles, maybe all the way up to premium level cars, to where at the premium level you've got the same model that we just talked about, but at the entry level, price is still important. And it's going to be difficult to say that same price that a premium system will accept is going to be acceptable down at the low end. So I think there's the vision, the aspirational goal of having a single platform that everything uses. That's probably not going to be as practical across the board, certainly starting out and perhaps even over time. You'll have to have different solutions, and then the challenge from a hardware standpoint is how to make those different hardware solutions software compatible enough. So even if you have, let's simplify it, there's a low, mid, high end hardware platform, they can all run varying degrees of the same software package on them, so you're not having to reinvent the software for each one of those hardware platforms. But the thing is, the inherent tension that has always existed between semiconductor technology development and automotive, because the semiconductor guys, as personified, say, in smartphones, that's got a cadence of maybe new products every 6 months, maybe a year. Automotive, as you mentioned, you've got years worth of development, and then once you make that development investment, you've got to hold on to that hardware for a number of years to make it financially interesting, all at the same time that you're trying to make something that's compatible enough for the software that that you want today, and the aspiration of what do I think that software is going to be in the future that I need to be able to support. So the idea of the software defined vehicle is exciting. It's not trivial. And it's certainly going to have challenges within the industry that they're familiar with, hardware development, but also new ones in terms of, how do you plan product developments where the software essentially never changes, but the hardware is still going to be somewhat in that traditional model of it will have more standard signposts that it goes through.
Okay, you've opened a Pandora's box here because we're talking about how OEMs and suppliers interact. And in co-developing a software-defined vehicle, automakers and suppliers are going to be experiencing a new kind of collaborative R&D relationship. Who are some of the suppliers you see as being essential to this revolutionary approach to the traditional supplier value chain?
Well, I think the obvious answers are the ones that kind of came on the scene. Oh, let's say, just to put a big box around it, 10 years ago. I mean, before that, the semiconductor suppliers, primarily in automotive, were on the compute side, so the processor side primarily. Were the Infineons, the Renesas, the NXPs, the STs. Now, those guys still play, but they don't play in the high performance compute space. That's been somewhat taken over by the NVIDIAs, the Qualcomms, in the futures, Horizon Robotics. You've also got Mobileye and other companies like that, which are, it's kind of bifurcating into what I would say are general purpose SoC solutions, where you could pick up an NVIDIA SoC, a Qualcomm SoC, and say, hey, I could do ADAS with this, I could do infotainment with this. And then you've got others, the Mobileye's are the clear example of this, where they built an SoC that is very focused on a given application, ADAS, self-driving in this case, where those guys are kind of setting the benchmarks now that the OEMs are chasing in terms of what's going to be available when, how do I incorporate their roadmaps for SOCs and software development in terms of vehicle and product development. So in that sense, it's going to change. Some of the names are going to be different. I would just point out though that if you go back far enough in automotive, what we now call Aptiv, at one time was Delphi. Before that, it was Delco, and that was part of General Motors. Visteon was part of Ford. So in a sense, the more things change, the more they stay the same. You see Tesla's become very vertically integrated. I think one of the reasons that you see OEMs talk about software development and even silicon development is not necessarily because they want to do the whole thing, as much as it is they now recognize that if they don't know what that stuff is intimately, then they could potentially fall victim to making bad technological choices in their roadmap. So I think it's going to be much more this intertwining of the supply chain, but in a sense, the automotive has kind of always had evolving models in terms of how the OEMs relate to their suppliers, and I think this is just going to be the newest incarnation of what that looks like.
Wow, really insightful there. Let's switch back to Tawhid. One recent development in the software space involves generative AI, and we can't talk about the subject without bringing that in. Until recently, the connected cars challenge was mostly, who could create the best hardware-software interface. But now generative AI is making its presence felt in terms of rapid upgrades to software and products. So walk us through what we can expect from the evolution of cockpit domain software, as well as autonomous driving technology with the rise of AI.
Generative AI is going to be a very big deal for automotive industry going forward. Whether we talk about HMI of the vehicle cockpit system, intelligent features, or autonomy features, everywhere AI and neural network technology will have some influence. Let me give you some use cases. First, with HMI. OEM like BMW with their latest iDrive and virtual avatar or private assistant, they're connecting natural language processing, gesture control, and machine learning to give the driver a seamless user experience, like it can automatically perform some of the manual HMI tasks without driver intervention. So we are autonomizing not only the vehicle, but part of the vehicle as well. Now, look at another example, say with new generation augmented reality navigation, which requires both GPS navigation data and real-time vehicle surrounding information. And these two are fused together to give the driver a virtual reality-like GPS navigation experience. Then with autonomous vehicles, AI is everywhere, whether it is perception or sensing using computer vision software, or vehicle decision making or predictive modeling. In all cases, generative AI leads the real-time decision making for autonomous vehicles or generate techniques to predict the behavior of the road users. However, AI features are not limited to these two areas only, although we talk about them more often. Areas like EV battery predictive maintenance and life cycles also uses AI. Additionally, intelligent suspension system with predictive terrain response management make the best use of AI. And when it comes to future steer-by-wire, industry will witness even bigger use of AI. However, while we are talking about customer features with AI, OEMs are not just thinking about AI for user features. They are planning to use AI on broader areas like supply chain rationalization and management, manufacturing, and purchasing in all areas. For example, testing and validation of software heavily relies on simulation that uses AI and machine learning for system adaptation. And as a result, there is a cost benefit to OEM software development and product lifecycle management. So you can see broader usage. Another areas of AI, big usage is diagnostic. We found out during our market study and talking to various OEM is that OEMs are purely not only using for feature in cockpit domain areas, but they are also using AI to reduce software recalls because they believe this is where they will get the best benefit out of it. So they're keeping the hardware ready, software ready, but in many cases, they are not using the AI for user feature, but for diagnostic purposes. AI is a very complicated topics. Consumer electronics and IT industry is been dealing with AI for many, many years. So my question is, do OEM have the skills to specify all use cases for AI in the vehicle?
Okay, there's a lot of introspection that's going to be happening in OEM and supplier R&D departments about this issue. We're just getting started here. Okay, it's time for our lightning round, and we'll stick with Tawhid. Let's say you're the CEO of a Western automotive software development company. How much are you concerned about mainland Chinese competition, and what do you do about it?
Well, it is turned out to be a lot more challenging that the rest of the world thought. I think first of all, the agility of the Chinese market is showing a fantastic growth. Chinese EV startups are very agile. They're very good responsive. So my opinion about if I'm a CEO would be is to make system more global. What I mean is keep the system, the underlying system more global, but make the upper layer more local and have that adaptation and integration locally rather than globally from a one single design center point of view.
Okay, so now it's Phil's turn. There's always been a church and state separation between OEMs and suppliers, often with a lot of rancor involved. But say you're that same supplier CEO, Phil. How much are you willing to give up to the OEM in terms of technology ownership to maintain that precious and lucrative supplier relationship?
I think coming out of the pandemic, one of the things that we saw is the supplier OEM relationship can be reset, but it takes a pretty once in a lifetime kind of event to set the foundation for renegotiating the relationship between the supply chain and the OEM. So if I was that supplier, I would go in with my eyes wide open that whatever deal is put together now, I'm probably going to have to live with that deal for a very long period of time. It's not like I'll get my foot in the door now and then 2 years from now we'll renegotiate everything. The other side of it is trying to figure out what are the give and gets on both sides. This is as we talk about data is the new oil. It's not just a matter of if I'm a software supplier, how many licenses do I sell, or how do I get a return on the software that I am selling into an OEM in terms of how many cars they sell. It's what access to data can be exchanged of that data that I get back from the OEM. How can I monetize that differently? So I think in a sense, if you're that software supplier, the world is a lot more interesting perhaps than it's ever been. It's also a lot more complicated than it's ever been in terms of ownership of the data, who can do what with it. And I've got to factor all that into what kind of commercial relationship I establish with an OEM. Because again, if I get that wrong at the beginning, it's not like I'm going to be able to come back in a couple of years later and say, my bad, let's do this all over again.
All right. Obviously, we have just scratched the surface of this issue, and our experts could delve much deeper into the challenges and opportunities facing automakers and suppliers alike in this space. But our time is up. Thanks to our experts for joining us today, and thanks to you for listening. That was a lot to unpack, but I hope you all feel smarter and more informed for having tuned in. And if so, please share this podcast link with your colleagues and in your social media accounts. To read the article that accompanies this podcast entitled Connected Cars and the Automotive Revolution, as well as to opt into our newsletter that provides more information on this topic and others, please visit spglobal.com/mobility. And if you want to learn more about anything else under the automotive sun, please feel free to reach out to us at that same web address. We'll be back with more Fuel for Thought next month.